trips. If you've never been on a mission trip, you should absolutely go on one. It's one of our goals here as a church to make sure everybody is involved in missions, specifically going on a missions trip. So if you've never gone, one of the things you do, you work hard, but there's normally kind of a play day when you get to go do something fun. And so we did some great things on these trips. We went like whitewater rafting. We went, saw some waterfalls. But my favorite one was the time we went splunking. Now, if you're not familiar with what splunking is, it's sort of like a cave tour. If you've ever been to Silver Dollar City, my favorite thing about Silver Dollar City is not the roller coasters, it's the Marvel Cave Tour. And a cave tour is significantly different than splunking. In a cave tour, you walk down a nice handrail, and there's a path, and there's a guide, and there's electric lights running throughout. That's not what splunking is. See, on this particular trip, we all loaded up in our church bus and started driving down a state highway. And we turn off that state highway onto a gravel road. That I remember the gravel road just getting progressively smaller and smaller and smaller. If you've ever been in the hills of Tennessee, we're back there. It's not quite a 2-track, but bordering. On a cave tour, you pull into the parking lot and take this nice path. We stopped on the side of this gravel 2-track and pour out of the bus. I remember looking around. Where's the cave? Or a guide's like, oh, come on over here, and we hop a fence and proceed to walk between this wooded hillside and this farmer's field. And he searches, hey, I have permission to be here. The farmer told me I could. All right. So we come and we're walking through this field for a couple minutes, and eventually we come, and on this hillside, suddenly this slit opens up. And it's only, 4 or 5 feet high, but about 20 feet across. And he stops us and gives us little instructions before we climb down into this cave. And there's about 20 of us high schoolers that then start diving down into this cave. And I remember while I'm slipping down these loose rocks, because immediately inside it goes down about 30, 40 feet in this wide opening. And I remember holding my flashlight thinking, do I have new batteries? This cave was awesome, and we got to just kind of go and roam around, and I remember a couple of different points really, really clearly. One is this moment when I'm in this crack, and you're working your way down this crack. You've got your feet pressed to either side, and I remember looking down, a death grip on my flashlight, right? Like, this is my light. That's it. And I'm looking down, and I can't see the bottom. So I flip it around, and I look up, and I can't see the top. Well, we made it past that, and then we get to this next section, and it's this little tunnel, and it's not quite 2 feet high. So you're army crawling, and it's about 3 feet wide. And I remember army crawling through this, and I hope the feet in front of me don't stop. Because there's a face down by my feet, too. This won't be good. And we eventually work our way back, and our guide, kind of gathers this all up, and we're way back in this cave. We've made our way up a little creek. We've kind of crawled through some water, and it opens up wide enough to kind of gather us all in. And like every cave tour or splunking I've done, they say, hey, let's turn off all the lights. And that moment, if you've never been there at this point, when you're deep underground and all the lights are off, to darkness that nothing can compare to. The waving your hand in front of your face is entirely true. You can't even begin to see anything. There's not an ounce of light. There's no light to be seen, no light pollution, nothing. That's exactly where the story of the Bible starts. We're going to get to Matthew chapter 5, so go ahead and open your Bible to Matthew chapter 5. But we're going to start in Genesis chapter 1. See, Genesis 1 starts this way. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's this summary statement that he's going to spend the next 2 chapters explaining. But he says this in verse 2. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. This was before creation. This is in the ancient Near Eastern concept of nothingness. They didn't have the concept of space or emptiness. They had this emptiness, this void, these waters of darkness. Notice how darkness is instrumental. It's nothingness. So what does God do with this nothingness? He says in verse 3, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Now, let's leave this text up there for a second, please. What is the first thing God does? Some may say, this is a little bit of a trick question, some may say he creates. But actually, the first thing God does is speaks. God is always and has forever been a God who speaks, meaning he wants to communicate with his creation. He wants to communicate with you. This is what he does in his word, the scriptures. This is his word. There's a reason we call it the word of God. This is God communicating to each and every one of you here today. And you're all in sight in hearing from where God is speaking to you. So God wants to say something to you today. He's the God who speaks. But in his speaking, what does he do? He creates light. This is the first thing God creates, and he pronounces it good. Now, I want to point out something. We'll skip forward to day 4. Day 4 is when God creates the sun, moon, and stars. So this light is a different type of light than what's offered by the sun, moon, and stars. And he pronounces this light good. One last thing before we move on for him here. I want you to know, how does the day start? How does the day start? It said there was evening and there was morning. We'll come back to that. As we move through the Old Testament, I don't have time. I would love to take time and just walk you through this theme of light. So we'll just touch on a couple of key concepts here. But it continues to be a dominant theme in the Old Testament. But in the book of Job, if you're unfamiliar with Job, Job is the story about how do we handle human suffering? Like, what is the purpose of human suffering? Why do humans suffer? And it uses the word light 32 different times. It's a theme that Job keeps bringing up. And in Job 33, 29 and 30, it says, behold, God does all of these things, meaning God causes suffering. God allows suffering. God allows pain and good things. God does all of these things to bring back humanity from the word is pit, or the idea is cave. To bring back his soul from the cave, that he may be lighted with life. The psalmist speaks repeatedly of light, and he says that the Lord is light in Psalm 27:1, and he said the Lord lights our path in Psalm 119, 105. Isaiah speaks of a future when Israel will see a great light in Isaiah 9:2, and that Israel has been appointed as a great light to the nations in 42:6 and 49:6. And that one day the nations will come to see their light in Isaiah 60, verse 3. As we move into the New Testament, again, we could spend weeks just studying the concept of light in the Old Testament. But as we move to the New Testament, John, in his biography of Jesus, starts this way. It says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Big summary statement. And he goes on and says, he was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Now here, in him was life, and life was the light of men. The light shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. Now, if you're with me in Matthew chapter 5, flip back to Matthew chapter 4. This is Jesus announcing his public ministry. He's called his first disciples, and he now is explaining what he's here to do. It's a pretty key passage, right? This is right before our passage when Jesus sits down and gives the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus is explaining what he's here to do, and he quotes from Isaiah. And he says this in Matthew 4, verse 16. The people dwell in darkness have seen a great light. For those who dwell in the region and in the shadow of death, on them light has dawned. Today we pick up our study of the Sermon on the Mount. So after Jesus has said this, he goes up to the mountain and sits down and he gives the Beatitudes, which are this paradoxical identity of the Christians. He's saying this is who a Christian is, and this paradox of like mourn to be happy. This paradoxical identity. But then he launches into two illustrations to say, what is your purpose in this world? If you're a Christian, if you identify as a follower of Christ, here is your purpose. And last week, Joe presented the first of them. You are the salt of the earth. Today, he gives the second one. He says in verse 14, Matthew 5, verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. I told Joe I'm just stealing this outline, and I'm going to use the exact same outline. So here we go. First impressions. This is just a replay from last week. This follows Jesus' teaching on persecution. Jesus is talking specifically about his followers. He's not speaking of humanity in general. He's speaking of his followers. This explains current reality. Last week, the salt of the earth. Now, go listen to that whole sermon. It's fantastic. But salt, if you boiled it down into one word, and we'll do the same thing for light, is to preserve. The purpose of salt is to preserve, specifically in the culture in which Jesus was speaking. It was a preservation agent. So what he's saying is salt explains current reality, meaning what you look around as society, you are meant to preserve society, meaning society is rotting away. Society is decaying. You as Christians are meant to hold back the rot. What a fantastic calling for us as Christians, to hold back the rot that is natural in society. But for light, it's different. See, light, you are the light of the world. That explains current reality in that we live in a dark world. We live in a world that loves darkness and evil. It explains current reality that there is a battle between light and dark. Jesus chose salt for a reason. It was an incredibly applicable. It was a part of their daily life. It was an illustration they would all be able to grab. They knew it. This was a normal part of their life. We all go to our refrigerator. They went to the salt bucket. They just didn't. They daily were involved with that in a way that we are not. It preserved. So it was this intensely practical application or illustration. This one is an intensely theological application. We already saw that this starts in Genesis, and Jesus is like, hey, so I'm going to give you a really practical illustration, and I'm going to give you a really theological illustration. And so he uses light. Last, Joe talked about the reach. It says the salt of the earth. Not the salt of the salt shaker, not the salt of the salt block, the salt of the earth. The same is true of the light. The light of the world. Not a corner, not a neighborhood, not a church building, the world. And it's located on a hill. See, light does not retreat from darkness. Rather, it makes itself the most visible. The need. See, salt only exists or is only needed where rot is a danger. Light is needed where there is darkness. Let's go back and define what do I mean by darkness and what do I mean by light. Let's use Jesus' words, quoting from Isaiah, Matthew 4:16. The people who dwell in darkness. And then he says the parallel line, those who dwell in the shadow of the region of death. When Jesus is talking about light and dark, he's talking about life and death, blessing and cursing. Death and sin are synonymous with darkness. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about a lack of physical light. He's talking about the presence of sin and death. 6 different times in Genesis chapter 1, he says, there was evening and there was morning. There was evening and there was morning. There was evening and there was morning. What is he doing? He's establishing a pattern that should clue us all in, that darkness comes before the dawn. That there's a time of darkness, but then there will be a time of light. And all of history folds around that moment. We call it AD and BC. The moment when darkness became light. The presence of, as John says, light has come. Darkness does not get the final word. So we begin to discover, so let's meditate, let's think about this concept of light. What does that mean? What does it mean to be the light of the world? So let's think about light for a second. And the first thing I want to say is that light brightens. These are going to be deeply intellectual things. You're going to be like, wow, never knew this. Light brightens things up. Every Sunday morning when I preach, I get in here pretty early, and there's no lights on, and outside it's still dark. And I come through that door right there. Again, no lights on in this room except for the exit signs. But I'm pretty familiar with this room. So with my coffee cup in hand and Bible in hand, I boldly stride right along here and make my way over towards the kitchen and then follow that line back to the back. Except for a couple months ago. Someone left one of these big metal chairs dead center of that path. And I strode confidently, bang! I did not spill my coffee, but I'm glad there was no audio recording. It's been deleted now. What happens when you're in darkness? You stumble. Jesus in John chapter 11, verse 10 says, men stumble in the darkness. Every one of us has had this experience. We didn't know that something got moved. We forgot where something is. We bang our toe. We bang our chin. We feel around. We grope around. Here's the big idea. Light brightens, but what that means as Jesus of the light of the world helps us see reality. Helps us see reality. See, without light in the dark, I thought I knew what was really here, but I was wrong. If the light was on, I would have been clearly able to see that stinking chair, but it was off. This is like many of us in life, and this explains current reality. So many people in our world think they know what's true, but they're like me in that deep, dark cave. I can only imagine what's really going on out there. Even the scope of my little flashlight, what was just beyond the light, I have no idea. And so many of us, our society is filled with people groping around in this deep, dark cave, being like, hey, I absolutely know what is real. And you're like, no, you don't. You're in darkness. You're just making it up. See, the light brightens and shows us what is real. Christians, let me just be real honest here. The Bible makes it clear that we are in a war. A spiritual war that says we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in this present age, meaning right now. Don't think this is a time to come. This is some abstract future. This is right now. You are in a battle for your soul and the souls of your children and the souls of society. But so many of us as Christians are like covering our eyes, like, I don't want to talk about that. I'm going to retreat. I'm just going to live my own life and keep my head down. But as we look out, we see people stumbling around in the darkness, completely unaware that they are in a battle for their life. The second thing, light helps us see reality. Jesus, the light, helps us see reality. The second is that light brings life. Nothing grows without light. Plant life cannot exist without light. It needs the light of the sun to survive. Photosynthesis, I actually verified this with some science teachers just because I was like, is that true? Yeah, no, all plants, by definition, have to have sunlight to survive. I had a whole long section here about the health benefits for us physically of being out in the sun. I cut it for time. Just go outside. It's important to be in the sun. Your body needs sunlight. It craves sunlight. It desperately desires the light of the sun. But just like everything else dies without the sun, so our souls die without Jesus. We desperately need Jesus. The light helps us live. This is why Jesus talks about life so often, because this is the framework of the whole thing. Which side are you going to be on? God, the speaking life giver, or Satan, the lying death bringer? It's this cosmic struggle. Now, the third point, it was several years ago, but I continue to have the same type of situation happen. I'm not learning very quickly. My son had a friend over, and we had a great day planned. We were swimming all day, fishing, went out on a boat. And at the end of the day, when we were out of the light of the sun and in artificial light, I realized I had not thought for one moment about this key thing. See, my kids are fairly dark-skinned, and I'm fairly dark-skinned. We just enjoy being outside. But for some people, the sunlight presents a very real danger. My poor son's friend, when I saw him under the artificial light instead of the light of the sun, he was deep red. Most of you understand this. See, here's the third point about the light. The light not only brings life, the light not only brightens, but the light burns. The light burns. Just like salt can create thirst in those who taste it, so the light has a negative side effect. The same light that gives life exposes those who cannot live in it. Jesus had a lot to say about how his coming was going to be the dividing line between people. Most of his parables have some type of clear divide between those who accept him and those who reject him, those who obey him and those who disobey him, those who have accepted his life, his light, and are now part of the light themselves, and those who resist it. The illustration would go like this as we talk about the cave. You can either choose to accept Jesus and have his light of life in you so that the light of his life is not a danger to you, or you can bury yourself away in that cave. We've nicknamed some of my kids' friends, they're pasty pals, because the sun threatens them. But the way worse condition than people who burn easily are those who never accept the light of Jesus and instead hide away in their sin and their darkness and their shame, running from the light and never choose to accept Jesus, because there will come a day when they are exposed to that light. See, the light doesn't just reveal what's around you, it reveals what's in you. And if you have not accepted the light of life in you, the light will recognize you as not being one of it. And Jesus says very clearly, they will be cast away into outer darkness where there is burning and weeping and gnashing of teeth. Last week we talked about salt. And Jesus says if salt loses its saltiness, and one of the things Joe brought out was that that's not chemically possible. It's not possible for salt to actually become less salty. All it is possible to dilute it. Salt cannot stop being salty, but it can be diluted. In the same way, he talks about light. All that can be done to light is a Christian choosing to hide their light away. Can't stop being light. Next week, we'll follow up and talk more about that, about Christians who choose to take their light and run away and hide. Our verse is, you are the light of the world. Okay, so what does that mean to live as the light? What does that look like? How do I live as the light? Okay, so light brightens, light brings life, light burns. What does it mean for me to then live like that, Caleb? That's a really abstract concept. I'm really glad you asked because Jesus explains it. Remember the Beatitudes? That was the framework. That's what it means to live as the light. So let's take it and go back through these, all of them again. Blessed are the poor in spirit. So if you are the light, which Jesus says, if you're his disciple, you are the light. So blessed are the poor in spirit means if you are the light, you are broken over darkness. Remember, darkness is sin and death. Light is life. If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, this means you have a deep sense of brokenness over the presence of sin and death in this world. The second one, blessed are those who mourn. If you are the light, you are repentant when darkness is found in you. In you. Third is blessed are the meek. If you are the light, you don't trust your own strength to fight the darkness. If you are the light, what it means to be meek, blessed are the meek, means you don't trust in your own ability. You don't say, I've got this, I can handle this, I've got it all under control. You can say, I desperately need the light of life. Fourth, blessed are the hungry and thirsty for righteousness. If you are the light, you crave a life where there is no darkness. There is no darkness, there's no room, there's no aspect of your life that God does not have control of, where you are fully surrendered. Every part of your light, you shine the light of Jesus. Fifth, blessed are the merciful. This one hits hard for me. If you are the light, you remember what it was to be rescued from darkness. You remember that you were once in that cave, fumbling around alone, incapable of knowing what was going on. If you are the light, you are merciful because you remember your own past in darkness and what it felt like to be rescued from that. Blessed are the pure. If you are the light, you refuse to make peace with the darkness in you. You go to war with yourself. You discipline your body. You bring it under strict control. You don't excuse it. By the way, we love to label things. We love to label other people. We love to label our own issues. We love to say, oh, I've got this diagnosis, so therefore it excuses me from dealing with it. No, the pure, blessed are the pure says, no, I will call it what it is. It is a death that I'm choosing, and that helps you then deny it. The Bible talks a lot about denying yourself, saying no to yourself, disciplining your flesh. But so many of us are comfortable with a little bit of darkness somewhere, a little bit of sin, a little bit of death. How much death is acceptable in your body? Blessed are the pure. They refuse to make peace with the darkness in you. Blessed are the peacemakers. If you are the light, you don't run from the darkness, you carry the light into it. Peacemakers acknowledge that at the end of the day, everyone will come before Jesus Christ. So will they come before the light of life as an enemy? Or will they have made peace with God? So the peacemakers say, I've got to get to all of them so they don't show up before God one day as his enemy. And that drives them. They're not okay with darkness existing in this world. They say, I must go. But that leads us to the last one. Blessed are the persecuted. If you are the light, darkness hates you. This world does not love you, is not encouraging you, does not support you. The darkness hates you, hates your existence. Jesus says that men love darkness because their deeds are evil. They don't want the light around. It makes them uncomfortable. They have to then move away. See, Jesus doesn't promise that the light will always be welcomed. He promises that the darkness cannot overcome you. So often, darkness loves to spread these lies of, hey, keep Christianity out of the classroom. Keep Christianity out of the courtroom. Keep Christianity out of politics. But that is a lie from the devil meant to silence and get the light to stay hidden away, because they know that when the light shows up, they have to run. So Christians, keep showing up. Start showing up, because the darkness will flee from you. And that's what we're called to do, is run into the darkness. Here's a summary statement of all of those. Living as the light means that you are broken over darkness, that you're repentant of darkness, that you're dependent in your fight against darkness, that you're hungry for the light, that you're merciful towards people trapped in darkness, that you're unwilling to participate in the darkness, that you're willing to enter the darkness, that you're willing to suffer to bring light into the darkness. This is what the Beatitudes look like when you put it in the context of light. I wish I had 4 sermons I could do over this concept, because we didn't even get to the second sentence. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Just like light, this is a deeply biblical concept. In this biblical concept, there's always your choice of 2 cities. You get to choose one of these, but you don't get to choose both. There's the city that Jesus just described, a city set on a hill, but there's another city set on a plain. There's the city of Jerusalem, or the city of Babylon. There's the city of Zion, or the city of Sheol. The city of faithfulness, or the city of whoredom. The city of little gods, or the city of capital G God. The city of free men, or the city of slaves. The city of light, or the city of darkness. The city of life, or the city of death. The city of heaven, or the city of hell. So let me ask you, which one are you living a part of? If an objective outsider just looked at your life and said, using the Bible, using the 10 Commandments, using what Jesus says in the Beatitudes here, which one would you be longing to? Which one are you a citizen of? See, so many of us want to have our feet firmly in both camps. I'm in the city of light here, at church. But when I'm home, it's the city of darkness. Over here, when I'm at home, I'm in the city of light, but when I'm at work, it's the city of darkness. Or maybe at work, you do a great job. I'm in the city of light here at work, and I do a great job. But when I'm all alone by myself and no one's around, it's the city of darkness. Jesus says you can't do that. Use these Beatitudes to challenge yourself. Where do you need to be living as light? Maybe it's just a brokenness over your own sin, a true repentance over the sin in your heart that says, I will surrender every area of my heart. I want to hunger and thirst for righteousness. I want to be more like God. Maybe it's meek. Richard says, I teed it up, small group. I need people around me to live out the Christian life. Maybe you show a heart of arrogance that says, I can live this Christian life on my own. No, blessed are the meek says, I need people around me because I know how powerful the draw to darkness is. Maybe it's merciful. Maybe it's merciful. Maybe you need to remember the people in darkness, and you remember your own time in darkness, and you say, I need to have mercy on them because they need the light of life. As the worship team comes up, some of you know and are right now today sitting in darkness. And we're not talking the absence of electricity. We're not talking the flashlights all turned off at the bottom of the cave. I'm talking about the darkness of sin, of shame, of addiction, of bitterness, of fear, of pride, of guilt. You're fumbling around in that dark cave without any light, and you don't know what to do. You may feel hopeless. You may feel depressed. You may feel anxious. You may feel just despondent at the inability to make any progress in your life. You keep coming across dead end after dead end after dead end. But here's the story the Bible says. The Bible says the whole world is in that deep, dark cave of darkness, of sin and death. But Jesus, the light of heaven, came into that cave for you, to find you. Each and every one of you are valuable to him. He loves you. He left the 99. He left that they're safe in heaven. He came to look for you today. He says, you are seen. You are valuable. You are known. And he says, I want to offer you the light of life. Because you will all have to come to the light at some point, and you can either choose to accept the light of life and have your heart transformed and become the light yourself, or at the end of time, you will be dragged into the light. And that will burn. It says, now come to the light. All that means, guys, it's not complicated. It's simply say, Jesus, I know I have sinned and I am in darkness. Jesus, I need your light. I need you to give me a new life. I need you to make me the light of the world. That's it. That's all it means. So maybe today is the day you need to do that, because remember, he says, I am the God who speaks, and today he is here. It is his grace that you are sitting here today speaking to you. It's not my words, it's his words. That's what has power and authority here. Come to him. He is good. It's exhausting wandering around a cave in darkness. He says, I want to offer you hope and life. Please stand with me. We're going to close in one of my favorite songs from a little while ago. And it's taken from 1 Peter 2:9. And it says this, and believers, I want you to hear this. He's quoting from the Old Testament here. This is Peter talking to the church. He says, but you, each and every one of you are a chosen race. A royal priesthood, meaning that you have the power and authority that God gave Adam. You have dominion and authority, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. That's who you are. You are the light of the world. You are a holy nation. He says a people for his own possession, meaning he owns you. You are his. You belong to him. But notice, it says that. He's called you for this purpose, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him. You may talk about him, spread it, share it with everybody, that you may proclaim the excellencies of what? Of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So believers, if you've ever done that, let's sing and worship God for calling us into his marvelous light.